And good evening, everyone. Welcome to our show on the first Sunday of Advent, and our first look into our Christmas traditions. I am Lynx, and I'm one of your co-hosts, and want to welcome you all.
Hello, yes, welcome everyone. This is Katrina, and we have lots of Christmas-related stories for you today, yes, on the first Sunday of Advent. Oh, thank you for hosting us, Fearless Bear.
Yeah.
And good evening, Dammy. Nice to see you.
Good evening. Nice to see you as always. Please share the stream if you can.
Very good. Very much appreciated.
Yeah, definitely is.
Yeah. But we got a lot for you today. We got, in particular, some stuff about the Christmas tree and how that may or may not have come about, dependent on whether you choose to believe it.
Yeah. That is quite an interesting story, actually. So, should we just jump right into it?
Yes. Yep. Let's jump right into it.
Okay.
And the first one we were going to have today is the Christmas fairy.
Yeah, of Strasbourg.
That's a tale from Germany.
Yeah, an interesting one.
It is indeed. Let's get right into that.
The Christmas Fairy of Strasbourg, Francis Jenkins Olcott, German. Once, long ago, there lived near the ancient city of Strasbourg, on the river Rhine, a young and handsome count, whose name was Otto. As the years flew by, he remained unwed, and never so much as cast a glance at the fair maidens of the country around. For this reason, people began to call him Stoneheart. It chanced that Count Otto, on one Christmas Eve, ordered that a great hunt should take place in the forest surrounding his castle. He and his guests and his many retainers rode forth, and the chase became more and more exciting. It led through thickets and over pathless tracts of forest, until at length Count Otto found himself separated from his companions. He rode on by himself until he came to a spring of clear bubbling water, known to the people around as the Fairy Well. Here Count Otto dismounted. He bent over the spring and began to lave his hands in the sparkling tide. But to his wonder, he found that though the weather was cold and frosty, the water was warm and delightfully caressing. He felt a glow of joy pass through his veins. As he plunged his hands deeper, he fancied that his right hand was grasped by another, soft and small, which gently slipped from his finger the gold ring he always wore. And lo, when he drew out his hand, the gold ring was gone. Full of wonder at this mysterious event, the Count mounted on his horse and returned to his castle, resolving in his mind that the very next day he would have the Fairy Well emptied by his servants. He retired to his room, and, throwing himself just as he was upon his couch, tried to sleep. But the strangeness of the adventure kept him restless and wakeful. Suddenly he heard the hoarse baying of the watch-hounds in the courtyard, and then the creaking of the drawbridge as though it were being lowered. Then came to his ear the patter of many small feet on the stone staircase, and next he heard indistinctly the sound of light footsteps in the chamber adjoining his own. Count Otto sprang from his couch, and as he did so, there sounded a strain of delicious music, and the door of his chamber was flung open. Hurrying into the next room, he found himself in the midst of numberless fairy beings, clad in gay and sparkling robes. They paid no heed to him, but began to dance and laugh and sing to the sound of mysterious music. In the centre of the apartment stood a splendid Christmas tree, the first ever seen in that country. Instead of toys and candles, there hung on its lighted boughs diamond stars, pearls, necklaces, bracelets of gold ornamented with coloured jewels, aigrettes of rubies and sapphires, silken belts embroidered with oriental pearls, and daggers mounted in gold and studded with the rarest gems. The whole tree swayed, sparkled, and glittered in the radiance of its many lights. Count Otto stood speechless, gazing at all this wonder, when suddenly the fairy stopped dancing and fell back, to make room for a lady of dazzling beauty, who came slowly towards him. She wore on her raven-black tresses a gold diadem set with jewels. Her hair flowed down upon a robe of rosy satin and creamy velvet. She stretched out two small, white hands to the Count, and addressed him in sweet, alluring tones. "Dear Count Otto," said she, "I come to return your Christmas visit. I am Ernestine, the Queen of Fairies. I bring you something you lost in the fairy well." And as she spoke, she drew from her bosom a golden casket set with diamonds, and placed it in his hands. He opened it eagerly, and found within it his lost golden ring. Carried away by the wonder of it all, and overcome by an irresistible impulse, the Count pressed the fairy Ernestine to his heart, while she, holding him by the hand, drew him into the magic mazes of the dance. The mysterious music floated through the room, and the rest of that fairy company circled and whirled around the fairy queen and Count Otto, and then gradually dissolved into a mist of many colours, leaving the Count and his beautiful guest alone. Then the young man, forgetting all his former coldness towards the maidens of the country round about, fell on his knees before the fairy, and besought her to become his bride. At last she consented, on the condition that he should never speak the word death in her presence. The next day the wedding of Count Otto and Ernestine, Queen of Fairies, was celebrated with great pomp and magnificence, and the two continued to live happily for many years. Now it happened on a time that the Count and his fairy wife were to hunt in the forest around the castle. The horses were saddled and bridled and standing at the door. The company waited, and the Count paced in the hall with great impatience. But still the fairy Queen Ernestine tarried long in her chamber. At length she appeared at the door of the hall, and the Count addressed her in anger. "You have kept us waiting so long," he cried, "that you would make a good messenger to send for death." Scarcely had he spoken the forbidden and fatal word, when the fairy, uttering a wild cry, vanished from his sight. In vain Count Otto, overwhelmed with grief and remorse, searched the entire castle and the fairy well. No trace could he find of his beautiful lost wife, but the imprint of her delicate hand, set in the stone arch above the castle gate. Years passed by, and the fairy Ernestine did not return. The Count continued to grieve. Every Christmas he set up a lighted tree in the room where he had first met the fairy, hoping in vain that she would return to him. Time passed, and the Count died. The castle fell into ruins, but to this day may be seen above the massive gate, deeply sunken into the stone arch, the impress of a small and delicate hand. And such, say the good folk of Strasbourg, was the origin of the Christmas tree.
Okay, I forgot to unmute there for a second. That was our first story for tonight, and it is quite an interesting one. It falls in line with some of the other stories, in particular connected to royalty, where they seem to tie themselves with some fairy or water spirit or something. I do feel it's somewhat of the same line as that.
Yeah, it does actually sort of remind me a little bit of maybe Extra Condla. Just in sort of the immediate of what I can think of fairies getting entangled with royalty, and royalty falling in love with fairies. That is one of the tales that I immediately think of as Extra Condla when it comes to that. But we
Yeah.
have sort of seen that trope.
Yeah,
What?
I actually am reminded of I think it was one of the royal families of Luxembourg or something. The mother of Edward IV, his queen, Jacquette of Luxembourg. Her family had the legend that they were related to a water spirit, Melusine or something.
That is interesting, because when I did Google Count Otto, there did come up a Count Otto from Luxembourg.
Ah.
You know, when I was checking about whether Count Otto was really a historical figure, there was an Otto the First between 1167 and 1171, 13th of January 1200, and he was Count of Burgundy from 1190 to his death, and briefly Count of Luxembourg from 1196 to 1197. And they were associated with the Holy Roman Empire. There are a couple of Ottos, Otto II as well, King of the Germans and Emperor of Rome, quite a lofty title. I've not actually seen this story being associated to any of these specific Ottos. But yeah, it's interesting that you should mention that some people from Luxembourg claim to have fairy descent.
Yeah.
Because that was indeed one of the Count Ottos that I did find.
Yeah, that is interesting.
In my research.
Yeah. And thank you to Ragnar and Stephen O for the ice creams. That is very much appreciated.
Well, indeed, yes, thank you for those. Yeah. So basically, what I was mostly intrigued by with this story is I wonder where the Christmas tree does actually come from. And, you know, obviously with the Fae, you have sort of very otherworldly associations with them. And so I was looking for where we might find the sort of earliest Christmas tree. And I think the earliest thing which probably comes close to a modern Christmas tree was maybe a tree of paradise from the medieval mystery plays. So there were plays of biblical tableaus and stories that were given on 24th of December and on the commemoration and name day of Adam and Eve in various countries, really. And those trees were decorated with apples to represent the forbidden fruit, and wafers to represent the Eucharist and the redemption. And they were used as part of the setting for the play. And then later they got placed in homes. And the apples were, of course, replaced by round objects like shiny red balls. And I think in Poland they still will occasionally put shiny red apples and actual foods on the tree. So that is one of the possible actual origins for the Christmas tree. And then apparently in the same room as that was the Christmas pyramid, which was triangular, it was made of wood, it had shelves to hold Christmas figurines, and they decorated it all with evergreens and candles and a star. And there's a theory that those two merged and became the Christmas tree. But yeah, this story would sort of point to, I think, more possibly pre-Christian roots of tree symbolism, just because it is a being from the other world who's brought it to Count Otto. Yeah, and Fearless Bear does say that it might be associated with Yggdrasil from Norse mythology, and that's certainly one of the associations that it actually could have. The earliest reference that I found for a sacred evergreen tree was in Havara Saga, or Saga Havara och Hydrix Saga, or something pronunciation to that description. But in the Tolkien translation of that, he mentions the sacred tree of Uppsala being described by Adam of Bremen. And Adam of Bremen allegedly described that as a huge evergreen tree stood by the Temple of Uppsala. And it might have actually been a physical sacred tree. I mean, in this particular story, it's reported as being smeared with the blood of a horse after the sacrifice. And that is a common practice, seems to be being referred to there. But it certainly was a large evergreen sacred tree. But it's also pointed out that this description of a sacred tree might have been a rationalization of the world tree of Yggdrasil.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ragnar always thought that the Christmas tree was Nordic too. Yes, it does look like there's evidence pointing to that here.
Yeah.
And Tacitus is also mentioned in Germans honouring trees a heck of a lot, woods and groves.
Yeah. The Norse were said to have, of course, their Juleblot. And the sacrifices, as far as I know, were hung in evergreen trees that were considered sacred. And there is one Scandinavian story that is clearly propaganda from the Christians against the pagans, where they talk about an evergreen that was immensely huge and
yes.
basically bathed in sacrificial blood, including from humans. And then some saint came and cut it down. So there definitely seems to be a connection to the pagans in the north. And there are
Yes.
some theories that people continued to put up sacred amulets and everything in the trees, and one way of hiding it was that the tree was outside in the woods, so you couldn't really know who had put it up there. And another thing, when the Christmas tree was taken indoors, then they had an opportunity to, just have it as some discreet decoration, because some of the Old Norse traditions were well alive and well up until, the 17 and 1800s. So it's definitely possible.
What I came across was the story of specifically either Saint Winifred or Saint Boniface. I think they might both be the same person, but he chopped down Donna's oak, and the folktales going on about how all the animals in the area were afraid to go near the oak, and there was always sacrificing tons of innocent people at this oak, which I don't think actually happened much with respect to Thor. But they said that the saint chopped down this oak, and then he just points to a fir tree and goes, "That's your tree now. Look, it's everlasting. It's always green, like Christ is, and it's a triangle, like the Trinity, and it points upwards to heaven." I go, that one. It had been, a baby fir tree next to the oak. Yeah. So I did find that one, but I was dubious as to that, because certainly, I think people would have noticed the sort of symbolism inherent in evergreen trees, or had sort of beliefs about them prior to Christianity, because they're just quite remarkable, aren't they? You know, they stay green all year round, and when you don't know really why that is or why they do that, you're gonna develop sort of symbolism and beliefs around them. And of course, as we know, trinities have been a long-standing Indo-European thing.
Yeah. It does seem to be quite a long story behind it. And Charlie Big Potato has just sent over a few, so good evening everyone. It's good to see you. Having a chill stream with a few stories. Yeah.
And evergreen decorations might be Roman as well, because they were known to decorate their houses with wreaths of evergreen plants, along with other customs now associated with Christmas. And I heard mention of ancient Egyptians also decorating their houses with palm leaves at certain times, but I was dubious as to whether that was linked. But certainly the Roman customs might actually be. Oh, by the way, I know it said German in that tale. I mean, there's some dispute as to whether Strasbourg, German or France. But yeah, I think the Alsace region is actually a little different from both German and France.
Yeah.
Celtic, actually.
Yeah.
Quite Celtic, that region.
Yes,
Good indeed.
And also when you go back, it sort of blends, you know, with the different distinctions. So
that is true. It does kind of blend, yeah.
Yeah. Many of the stuff that separates us today have you know, evolved over the years. So back then it might not have been that much difference.
No, true. It might not actually have been that much difference. I mean, I think the boundaries between Germany and France were very much blurred back then. Oh, lots of people sipping cocoa in the D-Live comments. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ragnar would like to hear a reading of Odin's prayer in our native tongues.
Different native tongues. I mean, could I read Old English? Is that a thing? Could I learn the pronunciation of some Old English for Woden's prayer? That'd be flippin' cool.
Yeah. We will.
D-Live is being bad again. The story that was playing just then wasn't so much buffering for me personally, and the YouTube's doing fine. But yeah, sometimes D-Live is like that, I do think.
It depends on the device and browser and everything, so I usually use Brave browser and I rarely have any problems. The CPU on my computer is fine, so it's not on my end at least.
Yes, yeah, for other people it is fine. But yeah, I don't know, the Christmas tree, like, it really intrigued me. And as I say, this earliest mention of a big sacred evergreen tree, I think it's probably Havara Saga. And I think it does relate to probably the world tree just due to the area of the world that it's cropping up in. But certainly evergreen trees would have had symbolism all over the place, really. I think they had symbolism in Celtic cultures too.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Welcome, Tim, from White Rabbit Radio, hosting us with 18 viewers. Thank you very much. Always glad to see you.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. But we have another story about the Christmas tree tonight. Or at least something which goes on the Christmas tree. And a very interesting little origin story that is too.
Yeah.
I had never heard it.
Neither have I. It's one from Eastern Europe, in particular Ukraine, as far as I understand. So I've basically just compiled a few versions of it. It's only 3 paragraphs. It is very short. But it's definitely a very cute one, even though it's very short, so enjoy. The Legend of the Christmas Spider. Long, long ago, another Christmas was approaching. As every year, the wise started to clean the house in preparation for the Christ child to come and give his blessing in the midnight. Every nook, cranny and cupboard was swept and cleaned until the house was spotless. In doing so, she swept away every cobweb in the house, and the spiders had to move into the darkest corner of the attic for the time being, barely escaping with their lives. The elder spiders sat down to wait until they could move back into the rest of the house, but some of the younger ones wanted to see the Christ child and the magical Christmas tree. The eldest tried to explain that they were not allowed into the house during this time, but the youngsters were adamant. They wanted to go and see. After a long time discussing, the eldest and wisest of the spiders thought they had found a solution to the problem. They would wait until nightfall, when the whole house was sleeping, and then they would sneak in and take a look. And so it was decided. Even the adult spiders could feel the thrill of this adventure, and when midnight came, they sneaked out of the attic into the main part of the house, taking care to tiptoe silently on all their 8 legs, making no sound. Slowly they came up to the Christmas tree, and everyone was so captivated by its beauty that they crept up into the tree, taking a closer look at all the beautiful ornaments. They could not help themselves and started to weave their pretty and delicate webs all over the tree. They so enjoyed themselves that they danced on the branches all through the night. In the wee hours, the Christ child came into the house to give his blessing. He was surprised to find the little spiders and their webs on the tree. He knew that every creature is made by God and he loves them all dearly. Yet he also knew that the wife who had worked so hard to get her house in order would be dismayed by the pretty webs on the tree. So with his heart filled with love for them all, and a smile on his lips, he touched the webs with his finger, so they started to sparkle and glitter in silver and gold, making the tree even more beautiful than before. It is said that this is the origin of tinsel being put on the Christmas tree. Okay, so that was our little Christmas spider.
Yeah, it was so cute.
Yeah.
It was so cute.
And I say that as a total arachnophobe.
I'm not too bad with them. I'm not too bad with them.
I'm quite bad with them, so, just the thought of them usually makes my skin crawl. But, that one was quite a cute one. Though I would
They just wanted to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would probably be a bit horrified if I came up on Christmas morning and the tree was full of spiders and webs, but I might let them live because it's Christmas. In particular,
Yeah.
if the Christ child had come and turned them into gold and silver, that would be nice.
Indeed. I think it was the spider in this picture is gold. I think the Christ child mostly turned the webs into gold. Unless they were like just live golden spiders like running around the place.
Yeah,
After that,
it was the webs that was
spinning
turned.
gold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the spiders, that would kill them, but yeah, it's easier to place a gold spider on the webs these days than go harvesting spiders for Christmas.
Indeed. Nobody really wants live spiders on the Christmas tree. It's a bit too gothic.
Yeah, and would they stay in place?
No, they wouldn't.
Exactly.
They'd run away.
Yeah.
You'd have spiders all over your house for weeks.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be practical at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I just found it like so cute how the younger ones were so excited and they were like, I want to go see a Christmas tree.
Yeah, and the old ones, no, you're going to get killed. The wife of the house doesn't allow us in this part of the house for these 2 weeks, so we have to stay there, talk about a lesson going down generations. No, I haven't seen that one.
Cute. It's like it reminded me of Lucas the spider and his friend the fly, who he doesn't eat. He doesn't want to eat the fly. He seems to be a vegetarian spider, and they just run around and get into a bunch of adventures. And I think it's an Australian animation creator.
Yeah.
Who did that one? I should tweet that out.
Yeah, that would be good.
Because that was really cute. It's really cute. Yeah, but Tinsel, I think that is something that I didn't know where that came from at all, and I wondered, well, where does that actually come from? Because I don't know about you, but I perceive it as a very modern thing.
Yeah, I would think so. I've never heard that stories either, and
yeah,
it is very interesting. I did see hints of something of a German story about it, but I couldn't find that one. So yeah.
Yes. It'd be interesting to see the German story about it because, like I say, I did think Tinsel was very new, and I don't know about in Norway and the Scandinavian countries, but I think in Britain it has a lot of reputation as like a bit trashy, a bit like just gaudy to put on your Christmas tree, maybe, and lots of people don't like it because it gets all like strands of tinsel everywhere. But apparently, in Nuremberg in 1610, that was not the case. It was very rich, and tinsel was indeed actually gold and silver. Like tiny bits of gold and silver strewn all over the tree to reflect the candlelight. And it was a status symbol of the very, very rich. However, that was sort of not a great idea because it would tarnish very quickly. Tarnish very quickly the silver that they were putting on the tree. So they came up with the idea of adding more sort of metals like tin and copper, those sort of shiny metals on the tree instead. But then those got needed for World War I eventually. So after World War I think they tried having lead tinsel for a bit, which went about as well as you could expect, given that that's highly poisonous. And then they sort of switched to making it with polyvinyl chloride. And that's really where you get modern tinsel from. But
Yeah.
I didn't know that. It used to be like a big flex. A big flex to have tinsel on your tree.
Yeah, well, if it's actual silver and gold, then it really is a status symbol. It's quite common here in Norway. It's not really seen as tacky or anything, but as with everything, not too much. I would definitely keep away from lead tinsel, though.
Indeed. I don't actually know how that worked, Marche. They used to put lead in a lot of stupid things in the old days. To be fair to them, I don't think they knew it was poisonous. I think one of our stories tonight mentions like lead soldiers or something
Yeah.
for kids. Oh, the old days. Innocent times. Lead paint.
Yeah.
The amount of stuff that kill you in Victorian toys and foodstuffs. Not good. Not good.
No. Every time I see a documentary or anything, then a documentary series of that stuff always pops up without fail. And
Yeah.
so far, I actually haven't seen it. I'm not sure I want to know, to be honest.
Yeah. There's like everything. There's like arsenic in food and baths that are gas heated that can boil you if you forget to turn them off. There's just like Victorian England, I think, in particular, was a health and safety nightmare. Maybe it was Darwinian if you do forget to turn the gas bath heater off.
Yeah.
You know? Oh dear. But yes, tinsel fortunately stopped being made of lead and started being made out of plastic instead, which is not very biodegradable, but at least it is not poisonous.
Yeah, if you take good care of it.
Something.
If you take good care of it, it lasts a long time as well. We still have, my parents have some tinsel that I think must have been bought and started to use when I was a kid. So, be gentle with
impressive.
them. Yeah. Treat them well and they will last you a long time.
Indeed. Seems like it. Yeah. But yeah, I did think that was quite an interesting one. And maybe it's inspired me to put a few little spiders on the tree this year in honor of the tinsel spiders.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure I will go that far, but I will think of them at least.
Get Halloween decorations. I reckon all the Halloween decorations are discount around now.
Yeah, I would think so.
You know?
So maybe you can do a little bargain on that. Maybe
Could indeed.
Maybe sprinkle some glitter on it or something.
Glitter spiders.
Yeah.
Very Christmassy. Well, they are in Ukraine. Cultural differences, innit?
Definitely.
Oh dear. Yeah. But up next we have... It was a story about a strange Christmas phenomenon, which a fiddler uses to his advantage.
Yeah.
And I shall not say much more than that about it.
No, let's just start the story.
It's called William and the Bull.
William and the Bull, version by Tim Laycock. William was the best fiddler in the area, known all around as the man for the job when it came to dances music was required, so when Timothy Thomas got married to Sarah Rose, it was the most natural thing in the world to ask old William to play. Now this all happened one glorious summer's day at the end of June, just after midsummer. But to understand what happened after, I must make sure that you know of the old West Country belief that at midnight on Christmas Eve, if you go into a stable or barn, or anywhere where beasts are kept, you will see them on their knees, in honour of the birth of Jesus. Down in Somerset, they also say that at that special time, midnight on Christmas Eve, beasts can talk. But that may be due to the scrumpy they drink in those parts. Anyway, on the day of the wedding, all the folks went to church, and there was old William, sat in the gallery, playing sacred music on the violin, and whenever the vicar called for a hymn or a psalm, old William led them in the singing most appropriately. The service being over and the couple wed, the bride and groom linked arms in the traditional way, and led the congregation out of the church and down towards the tithe barn, with old William in front, playing the Caledonian March, or Bonaparte's Retreat. When they got to the barn, it looked beautiful. Walls freshly whitewashed, floor swept, greenery around the windows and doors, great long tables down the middle, all groaning with eatables and drinkables. They all sat down and the feasting began, all except for old William, who was perched on a barrel over to one side, playing lively song tunes and ditties to keep 'em all humming while they ate. But they didn't forget him. Oh no, because in Dorset folk are very hospitable towards musicians. You only have to hear the string of a fiddle or the toot of a flute, and you can't help yourself. You have to dip your hand into your pocket and give them a few pence or something to eat, or maybe a drink. So as William played, someone gave him some beef, someone else gave him some cake, someone else gave him some beer, and someone else gave him some cider, and so he was fed and watered as he played. After 2 or 3 hours the food was all gone, so they cleared away the tables, pushed the benches to the walls, and began to dance. They did the long ways dances, and the circle dances, the right-hand stars and the do-si-dos, and there was old William, sawing away upon the fiddle, playing up the sides and down the middle, and all the jigs and reels and hornpipes popular in that neighbourhood at the time. As he played, someone else gave him some gin, someone gave him some whiskey, someone else gave him some rum, and someone else, who should have known better, gave him a glass of brandy. So consequently, when the bride and groom had gone off to honeymoon, and all the guests had gone home, the only person left in the barn was old William, absolutely exhausted. Well, he'd been playing all day, and to tell you the truth, not completely sober, so he made a mistake, which, had he been in his usual state of mind, he would never have made. He took a short-cut across Long Meadow. Now anyone in the village would have told you that this was where the farmer kept his bull, but William had forgotten this. At least, he forgot it until he was as far away as he could possibly be from any of the 4 hedges, and then, in the darkness, he heard a pounding of hooves, and the sound of heavy snorting, and looking around, he saw Farmer Chick's prize bull, Captain, charging towards him in the moonlight, horns a-glinting. Well, William was far too tired to run for it, so in the circumstances he did the only sensible thing. He took up his fiddle and began to play. Well, it was very lucky for William that Captain was musical. As soon as he heard the music, he stopped, listened, and a contented smile came over his face, and as long as William kept playing, all was well. As soon as he stopped to think of another tune, down went the bull's head, and his hooves began pawing the ground, so William had to keep playing. He played all his jigs and reels and hornpipes. He played them all again. He even played a waltz or 2. The night wore on until at last William had one of those dreadful moments that all musicians experience, when you know that you know more tunes, but you can't remember what they are. And down went Captain's head, and his hooves were pouring on the ground, and then William had a flash of inspiration. Even though it was the middle of June, he very slowly and reverently began to play the old nativity hymn, "While shepherds watched their flocks by night." Well, it was very lucky for William that not only was Captain musical, he was also religious. He thought it must be Christmas Eve, so down he went on his great knees, and down went his head until his horns were touching the ground. William took his chance, took to his heels, and was over the hedge before the bull could get up again. As he said afterwards, he'd often seen people look stupid, but he'd never seen a bull look stupid before, and that's the story of William and the Bull. The violin or fiddle was the preeminent instrument for the village music in Dorset until the arrival of melodeons and concertinas in the middle of the 19th century. Thomas Hardy played the violin and loved country dancing. His father, uncle, and grandfather all played string instruments, and formed the nucleus of the church band in Stinsford Parish Church just outside Dorchester. Their collection of dance tunes, handwritten in the back of their carol books, has long formed the basis of the repertoire of local ceilidh bands. Hardy was fascinated with stories connected to fiddles and fiddle playing, and included them in many of his poems and novels. A short version of William and the Bull is told by Dairyman Crick in Tess of d'Urbervilles. The dialect poems of William Barnes, based largely on childhood memories of North Dorset and the Blackmore Vale, contain many references to fiddle music at local celebrations. Recently, the music manuscript of Benjamin Rose, a farmer, alehouse keeper, and fiddle player from Bellachwell, has emerged. It is dated 1820 and contains 133 country dance tunes of the sort that old William would have played to Captain.
Yeah, so that was our fiddler story. Another one. They do seem to creep up quite a few times.
Yes, they generally are regarded as quite magical, quite mysterious in the folklore of these fiddlers. I'm not sure what people seem to have particularly about them. Fiddlers and pipers, though, 100% always getting involved in strange incidents. But yeah, one of the things, but the main thing in there is this idea that animals will kneel down on Christmas Eve. And there certainly is a mention of that elsewhere, and one particular notable mention is in a poem by Thomas Hardy called The Oxen. And of course, the person compiling that folktale mentions Thomas Hardy and the influence on him at the end of that tale. And it's a very short poem, so I shall just read it. The Oxen. Christmas Eve and 12 of the clock. Now they are all on their knees, an elder said as we sat in a flock, by the embers in hearthside ease. We pictured the meek, mild creatures where they dwelt in their strawy pen. Not did it occur to one of us there to doubt they were kneeling then. So fair a fancy few would weave in these years, yet I feel if someone said on Christmas Eve, come see the oxen kneel, in the lonely barton by yonder coombe, our childhood used to know, I should go with him in the gloom, hoping it might be so. A barton is a type of farm building, and a coombe is a small valley. But he certainly seems to hope that this sort of thing might actually be true, and it seems to express a real longing to believe in magical phenomenons, in faith in deity. I mean, Thomas Hardy had lost his own religious faith early in life, but he remained what he called churchy. And certainly, I thought that was an interesting relation to the phenomenon in this story. And I don't know if it ties back to maybe an older belief at all about times when animals would act strange. Or, well, we know Christmas sort of corresponds with solstices and stuff of that sort of like.
Yeah, I have actually not heard of animals supposed to kneel on Christmas Eve before. It's not in the Scandinavian tradition.
I think it is very specific to Dorset and that sort of region that it would be animals kneeling around then. And this is the other connection really that I've found to it. Thomas Hardy mentioning it. I thought it was an interesting little poem to share as an aside as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's good to have some correspondence in other stuff.
Yeah. We should do a reading evening with DOA.
Yeah. We
should probably get DOA to read more things at some point. We shall see.
Yeah, we'll keep that in mind, and perhaps we'll have one over the new year or something.
Yeah, I mean, if DOA is up for that.
Yeah.
But we have to appreciate that many people are indeed very, very busy.
Yeah, that is one busy lady, so we'll see. We will definitely note it down.
Indeed. Yeah. No, but that was I just found that really funny. It's just especially that and someone who should have known better gave him a brandy. Dorset weddings sound fun.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Going back to the theme of the fiddler, I think that would be tied to the bard tradition, or the skald tradition that we have here in Scandinavia, because they are put in a particular status, to keep the stories of the people alive. And also it brings my mind to the neck, one of the mythological creatures of Norway. It is a water creature, and it is said that it is possible to learn to play the fiddle by the neck, but it is also dangerous because it is another worldly creature from the netherworld. So it's not without risk meeting up with the neck, but it does definitely ties it to the otherworldly and the netherworldly. People who live with one leg in each realm, one in our world and one in the netherworld. So that is definitely what my mind goes to, and also that the people keeps giving him drinks, and they can't help themselves doing that. That was very interesting, and then being able to soothe the oxen, the bull, and every time he stopped, the bull just went, "Ooh, I want to take you down." That was quite interesting.
It did seem to imply, yes, that there was some quality about old William's playing that was so good that it was magical and enchanting, and influenced people to do what he wanted, which, obviously we've heard of that with people with instruments before. I think most of the references to it in Britain would be pipers. Certainly we have a reference to singing in the case of women, usually making men do what they want. But certainly, yeah, it does seem like William might have a bit of a magical touch. Maybe he did learn his violin from a neck, which is a very risky way to get lessons, it seems like.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, you'd have to be flipping committed to being grade 8 violin.
Yeah, I would say so. And from last week, one of the Tuftefolk was a magical fiddler. When you listen to him, after a time you couldn't help but start to dance, and you would keep dancing until he stopped, even the furniture was dancing. So yeah, fiddler can be tricky creatures, it seems. In particular, the otherworldly ones. And also it sort of takes my mind to, the Pied Piper, taking with them all the children.
Yes, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So, yeah, definitely a particular status, I would say.
Yeah, I do think that there are echoes of the magical fiddler sort of trope about William, sort of possibly toned down there a bit in a sort of Christian era, but one wonders if he might be an echo of an older story, because we do very frequently see the magical fiddler.
Yeah, it sort of took...
Or the magical musician.
Yeah, one of the things it took my mind to was Dionysus.
Oh yeah,
well,
because he's very drunk. He's presiding over merriment. There's a couple getting married, fertility, that sort of thing. Yeah, see it.
Yeah, it's drinking and dancing and ecstasy and everything. Well, there wasn't a fiddler himself. That is what it took my mind to. So maybe I will have to check that one up in what other older story that can relate to.
Certainly. I mean, fiddlers probably, like, there's only so long that the fiddler's been around, I think. We've had stringed instruments for quite a long time. Certainly.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And also, it reminded me of one of the secrets that was in the secret cult of Pythagoras, was how to tune your instruments in a modern way.
The secret cult of Pythagoras. I didn't know he had a secret cult.
Not a cult, I'm sorry. It was a mystery school he had.
Mystery school?
Yeah.
Nice.
He many of the things he was teaching was considered not for the ordinary people. There are a few specific reasons for that, in particular when it comes to the scale of the music, because normally you would have to retune the instrument to get a different chord, from one octave to another. But there is a way to adjust that, so you don't have to do it. That is why Western music is different from music from other parts of the world. That was originally known by Pythagoras, but it was a secret. And it was rediscovered in, I think it was the 1300s or 1400s. And that's when all of the beautiful classical music with instruments really started coming. It's not just choir.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and basically it's a theory that this can translate into physics. If you know the right way, then you can basically control the solar system or even larger things. That is purely theoretical. So I don't know how true that is, but that is that's the theory, at least.
That's like pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah.
I didn't know Pythagoras was responsible for most of modern classical music and or could possibly control the solar system. We don't know. Unproven.
No, it is quite mind-blowing, and controlling the energy of the solar system, that is speculation on the end of the twig, and it might not hold the weight.
Yes.
So, bear that in mind, everyone. But you could say it is a proof of concept, at least.
Indeed.
Apparently, I seem to blow people away sometimes with what I come up with. I do like weird stuff, so I did come from the conspiracy world back in the day.
Everybody likes a good conspiracy. I'd not even heard of that, though. Like, secret Pythagorean universe controlling formulas.
I didn't know that part of it, but I did know he had a mystery school. I think I learned that back in high school or something, maybe even earlier.
Yeah.
So that's not a secret, but I'm not sure how much I know what the school was teaching. I think most of that was lost, and with the music, I think that was a genuine rediscovery, rather than finding the Pythagorean stuff and replicating it. I think it was a genuine rediscovery. So, yeah.
They really could have told us about more than just the triangles.
Yeah, it would make math a bit more interesting, for sure.
Indeed. Yeah. We have one final story today.
Yes.
I do think it's quite a nice one, about a very kind-hearted boy.
Yeah.
I did like it.
Yeah, this is Little Wolf and the Wooden Shoes, so enjoy. Little Wolf's Wooden Shoes. Once upon a time, so long ago that everybody has forgotten the date, in a city in the north of Europe, with such a hard name that nobody can ever remember it, there was a little 7-year-old boy named Wolf, whose parents were dead, who lived with a cross and stringy aunt, who never thought of kissing him more than once a year, and who sighed deeply whenever she gave him a bowlful of soup. But the poor little fellow had such a sweet nature that in spite of everything he loved the old woman, although he was terribly afraid of her and could never look at her ugly face without shivering. As this aunt of Little Wolf was known to have a house of her own and an old woolen stocking full of gold, she had not dared to send the boy to a charity school. But in order to get a reduction in the price, she had so wrangled with the master of the school to which Little Wolf finally went, that this bad man, vexed at having a pupil so poorly dressed and paying so little, often punished him unjustly, and even prejudiced his companions against him, so that the 3 boys, all sons of rich parents, made the judge and laughing-stock of the little fellow. The poor little one was thus as wretched as the child could be, and used to hide himself in corners to weep whenever Christmas time came. It was the schoolmaster's custom to take all his pupils to the midnight mass on Christmas Eve, and to bring them home again afterwards. Now, as the winter this year was very bitter, and as heavy snow had been falling for several days, all the boys came well bundled up in warm clothes, with fur caps pulled over their ears, padded jackets, gloves and knitted mittens, and strong, thick-soled boots. Only Little Wolf presented himself, shivering in the poor clothes he used to wear both weekdays and Sundays, and having on his feet only thin socks in heavy wooden shoes. His naughty companions, noticing his sad face and awkward appearance, made many jokes at his expense. But the little fellow was so busy blowing on his fingers, and was suffering so much with chilblains, that he took no notice of them. So the band of youngsters, walking 2 and 2 behind the master, started for the church. It was pleasant in the church, which was brilliant with lighted candles, and the boys, excited with the warmth, took advantage of the music of the choir and the organ to chatter among themselves in low tones. They bragged about the fun that was awaiting them at home. The mayor's son had seen, just before starting off, an immense goose ready stuffed and dressed for cooking. At the alderman's home there was a little pine tree with branches laden down with oranges, sweets, and toys. And the lawyer's cook had put her cap on with such care as she never thought of taking unless she was expecting something very good. Then they talked too of all that the Christ child was going to bring them, of all he was going to put in their shoes, which you might be sure they would take good care to leave in the chimney place before going to bed. And the eyes of these little urchins, as lively as a cage of mice, were sparkling in advance over the joy they would have when they awoke in the morning and saw the pink bag full of sugar plums, the little lead soldiers ranging companies in their boxes, the menageries smelling of varnished wood, and the magnificent jumping jacks in purple and tinsel. Alas, little Wolf knew by experience that his old miser of an aunt would send him to bed supperless, but with childlike faith and certain of having been all the year as good and industrious as possible, he hoped that the Christ child would not forget him, and so he too planned to place his wooden shoes in good time in the fireplace. Midnight mass over, the worshippers departed, eager for the fun, and the band of pupils, always walking 2 and 2 and following the teacher, left the church. Now in the porch, seated on a stone bench set in the niche of a painted arch, a child was sleeping, a child in white woolen garment, but with his little feet bare, in spite of the cold. He was not a beggar, for his garment was white and new, and near him on the floor was a bundle of carpenter's tools. In the clear light of the stars, his face, with his closed eyes, shone with an expression of divine sweetness, and his long curling blonde locks seemed to form a halo about his brow. But his little child's feet, made blue by the cold of this bitter December night, was pitiful to see. The boys, so well dressed for the winter weather, passed by quite indifferent to the unknown child. Several of them, sons of notables in the town, however, cast on the vagabond looks in which could be read all the scorn of the rich for the poor, of the well-fed for the hungry. But little Wolf, coming last out of the church, stopped, deeply touched, before the beautiful sleeping child. "Oh dear," said the little fellow to himself, "this is frightful. This poor little fellow has no shoes and stocking in this bad weather. And what is still worse, he has not even a wooden shoe to leave near him tonight while he sleeps, into which the little Christ child can put something good to soothe his misery." And carried away by his loving heart, Wolf drew the wooden shoe from his right foot, laid it down before the sleeping child, and as best he could, sometimes hopping, sometimes limping, with his sock wet by the snow, he went home to his aunt. "Look at the good-for-nothing," cried the woman, full of wrath at the sight of the shoeless boy. Little Wolf's wooden shoes. Once upon a time, so long ago that everybody has forgotten the date, in a city in the north of Europe, with such a hard name that nobody can ever remember it, there was a little 7-year-old boy named Wolf, whose parents were dead, who lived with a cross and stringy aunt, who never thought of kissing him more than once a year, and who sighed deeply whenever she gave him a bowlful of soup. But the poor little fellow had such a sweet nature that in spite of everything he loved the old woman, although he was terribly afraid of her and could never look at her ugly face without shivering. As this aunt of Little Wolf was known to have a house of her own and an old woolen stocking full of gold, she had not dared to send the boy to a charity school. But in order to get a reduction in the price, she had so wrangled with the master of the school to which Little Wolf finally went, that this bad man, vexed at having a pupil so poorly dressed and paying so little, often punished him unjustly, and even prejudiced his companions against him, so that the 3 boys, all sons of rich parents, made the judge and laughing-stock of the little fellow. The poor little one was thus as wretched as the child could be, and used to hide himself in corners to weep whenever Christmas time came. It was the schoolmaster's custom to take all his pupils to the midnight mass on Christmas Eve, and to bring them home again afterwards. Now, as the winter this year was very bitter, and as heavy snow had been falling for several days, all the boys came well bundled up in warm clothes, with fur caps pulled over their ears, padded jackets, gloves and knitted mittens, and strong, thick-soled boots. Only Little Wolf presented himself, shivering in the poor clothes he used to wear both weekdays and Sundays, and having on his feet only thin socks in heavy wooden shoes. His naughty companions, noticing his sad face and awkward appearance, made many jokes at his expense. I'm sorry, it seems we had a bit of a technical fail there and the story started again. Could the chat please say if the story finished properly? I am not sure what happened there, to be honest. I just saw the video had started again, so yeah.
I'm not entirely sure what just happened.
Neither am I.
Did that start?
I do.
Wait, I'm still playing that back. Did that story just start again?
Yeah, it did. It had a few minutes left the last time I checked, and suddenly I saw it started again. I have no idea what happened. So hopefully the stream can tell us if it finished or not.
Yes, please do let us know that actually finished. Help. YouTube chat. It got to when he returned home to his aunt and then restarted.
Ah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Should we play the last bit?
I think I'll just continue where I stopped this time. And just let the story finish and actually keep an eye on it. Sorry, everyone.
Okay.
But the little fellow was so busy blowing on his fingers and was suffering so much with chilblains that he took no notice of them. So the band of youngsters, walking 2 and 2 behind the master, started for the church. It was pleasant in the church, which was brilliant with lighted candles, and the boys, excited with the warmth, took advantage of the music of the choir and the organ to chatter among themselves in low tones. They bragged about the fun that was awaiting them at home. The mayor's son had seen, just before starting off, an immense goose ready stuffed and dressed for cooking. At the alderman's home there was a little pine tree with branches laden down with oranges, sweets and toys. And the lawyer's cook had put her cap on with such care as she never thought of taking unless she was expecting something very good. Then they talked too of all that the Christ child was going to bring them, of all he was going to put in their shoes, which you might be sure they would take good care to leave in the chimney place before going to bed. And the eyes of these little urchins, as lively as a cage of mice, were sparkling in advance over the joy they would have when they awoke in the morning and saw the pink bag full of sugar plums, the little lead soldiers ranging companies in their boxes, the menageries smelling of varnished wood, and the magnificent jumping jacks in purple and tinsel. Alas, little Wolf knew by experience that his old miser of an aunt would send him to bed supperless, but with childlike faith and certain of having been all the year as good and industrious as possible, he hoped that the Christ-child would not forget him, and so he too planned to place his wooden shoes in good time in the fireplace. Midnight mass over, the worshippers departed, eager for the fun, and the band of pupils, always walking two and two, and following the teacher, left the church. Now in the porch, seated on a stone bench, set in the niche of a painted arch, a child was sleeping, a child in white woolen garment, but with his little feet bare, in spite of the cold. He was not a beggar, for his garment was white and new, and near him on the floor was a bundle of carpenter's tools. In the clear light of the stars, his face, with his closed eyes, shone with an expression of divine sweetness, and his long curling blonde locks seemed to form a halo about his brow. But his little child's feet, made blue by the cold of this bitter December night, was pitiful to see. The boys, so well dressed for the winter weather, passed by quite indifferent to the unknown child. Several of them, sons of notables in the town, however, cast on the vagabond looks in which could be read all the scorn of the rich for the poor, of the well-fed for the hungry. But little Wolf, coming last out of the church, stopped, deeply touched, before the beautiful sleeping child. "Oh dear," said the little fellow to himself, "this is frightful. This poor little fellow has no shoes and stocking in this bad weather, and what is still worse, he has not even a wooden shoe to leave near him tonight while he sleeps, into which the little Christ-child can put something good to soothe his misery." And carried away by his loving heart, Wolf drew the wooden shoe from his right foot, laid it down before the sleeping child, and as best he could, sometimes hopping, sometimes limping, with his sock wet by the snow, he went home to his aunt. "Look at the good-for-nothing," cried the woman, full of wrath at the sight of the shoeless boy. "What have you done with your shoe, you little villain?" Little Wolf did not know how to lie, so although trembling with terror when he saw the rage of the old shrew, he tried to relate his adventure. But the miserly old creature only burst into a frightful fit of laughter. "So my young gentleman strips himself for the beggars. My young gentleman breaks his pair of shoes for a barefoot. Here is something new, forsooth. Very well, since it is this way, I shall put the only shoe that is left into the chimney place, and I'll answer for it that the Christ-child would put in something tonight to beat you with in the morning, and you will only have a crust of bread and water tomorrow, and we shall see if the next time you will be giving your shoes to the first vagabond that happens along." And the wicked woman, having boxed the ears of the poor little fellow, made him climb into the loft where he had his wretched cubbyhole. Desolate, the child went to bed in the dark and soon fell asleep, but his pillow was wet with tears. But behold, the next morning, when the old woman, awakened early by the cold, went downstairs, oh wonder of wonders! She saw the big chimney filled with shining toys, bags of magnificent bonbons, and riches of every sort, and standing out in front of all this treasure was the right wooden shoe, which the boy had given to the little vagabond. Yes, and beside it, the one which he had placed in the chimney to hold a bunch of switches. As little Wolf, attracted by the cries of his aunt, stood in an ecstasy of childish delight before the splendid Christmas gifts, shouts of laughter were heard outside. The woman and child ran out to see what all this meant, and behold, all the gossips of the town were standing around the public fountain. What could have happened? Oh, a most ridiculous and extraordinary thing. The children of the richest men in town, whom their parents had planned to surprise with the most beautiful presents, had only found switches in their shoes. Then the old woman and the child, thinking of all the riches in their chimney, were filled with fear. But suddenly they saw the priest appear. His countenance was full of astonishment. Just above the bench placed near the door of the church, in the very spot where the night before, a child in white garment and with bare feet, in spite of the cold, had rested his lovely head. The priest had found a circlet of gold embedded in the old stones. Then they all crossed themselves devoutly, perceiving that this beautiful sleeping child with the carpenter's tools had been Jesus of Nazareth himself, who had come back for 1 hour, just as he had been when he used to work in the home of his parents. And reverently they bowed before this miracle, which the good God had done to reward the faith and love of a little child. Okay, so now I know the story came to an end. So if you got the story twice, then I hope you enjoyed it twice, despite my interruptions there. Yeah.
It's like good of a Christmas story.
Oh yeah.
It's very Christmassy though.
Yeah, it is.
Definitely.
And it's in the line of with the theme that treat people nicely, in particular around Christmas, and you will be rewarded for it.
Indeed.
And I do think Little Wolf sort of embodied the spirit of Christ there. He was treated badly, but he didn't hold a grudge. While he didn't particularly like it, he didn't become filled with hate and rage and everything. His aunt wasn't exactly the nicest one, but he still loved her. And that certainly takes my mind to the stepmother theme. So
yes, indeed.
Yeah, I think that was maybe one of the reasons why I chose it, because it mirrors some of the themes we've already had in our shows.
Yeah, you kind of wonder, is it a biological aunt? Is it not a biological aunt? What happened to his parents? You know?
Yeah, definitely. And it's also the theme of the very poor guy who, through faith and acting properly, gets rewarded for it, and richly so. Even if it was just this particular Christmas, he did get plenty of rewards for it. Though I do feel his aunt should have had found her own shoes in the fireplace, filled with switches.
Yes,
she did.
I feel like that would have been like just the icing on the cake if the Christ child could have done that.
Yeah.
Like, no, you deserve smacked, lady.
Yeah, definitely. In her left shoe or something.
Yeah.
Well, it's not
Yeah.
specifically said. It is hinted that all of the presents the rich boys were having were transferred into Little Wolf's house, which is interesting.
Oh, yeah. Yes, because they got none of their presents and they would have had a whole pile. I sort of missed that, actually.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, well, I of course had to read it quite a few times, so it was one of the things I noticed. It was sweets and toys and everything. So I do think all of those were transferred into Little Wolf and his shoes.
Yep. Yeah. And I think it sort of has a message about how, it's very easy to sneer at those who are in a less fortunate situation than yourself. I think the ant's attitude and, oh, well, you'd give your shoes to just any barefoot that comes along, you'd be so ungrateful to me and my provision. She sees everything she's got as something she's just naturally entitled to have, and something which she doesn't, think should be shared with people who haven't tried as hard, I guess. That's not very, community spirited, really.
No, it's not.
Or very petty.
Yeah, and I think it is 1690 Sparky with the diamond. Glad you're liking the stream.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, she certainly doesn't like to share any of her resources with the boy. She doesn't keep him properly clothed or fed, it seems. So when he then goes out and, just gives away one of his shoes, then she's just like, oh my god, what are you doing? Yeah, but it seems like the rich boys and maybe the aunt, if Little Wolf told her, the aunt didn't realize that the little boy's garments were clean and white, so it didn't seem he was a vagabond for that reason. And also I would say that there were some tools lying beside him also points to the fact that he wasn't a mere vagabond.
Yes, exactly. But, she just hears on the street and just, hand waves, thinks she knows the rest of the story, has her preconceptions about who's on the street and what they're doing there and why. And she doesn't get to hear any of those details. It certainly reminds me of sort of the long-standing taboo that there seems to be. I mean, you can see it in the Nordic sources as well. There's a lot of taboo against being ungenerous.
Yeah, I would say that is an old European theme in general. Be generous, but don't be foolish about it,
In terms of what you can afford. Oh, Ratus Swedicus says hi to your links.
Yeah.
Hi, Flimfodro.
Good to see you guys, even if you were a bit late. At least you can enjoy the rest of the show. So I hope that. And welcome, Takia Sumi. Good to see you.
Yeah. Hello.
And,
yeah, I think it's about time to... Oops, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say I hope the YouTube chat isn't thinking I'm ignoring them. I'm not. I'm just a bit careful with what my tech might be doing right now,
Yep.
so I don't want to switch this websites at the moment.
Yeah, there's Jewel and Sensum Communem. Communem. Sensum Communem. Your name is hard to pronounce. And Raffian. All in the chat. Natty in the chat. YouTube. Hello, YouTube chat.
Yeah, and thank you to Charlie for sending people over. That is very good of him.
Yes. Indeed.
Yeah. Also, I would like to say one more thing about that story. Considering all of the gossiping women had gathered at the fountain and laughing about what had happened to the rich kids, I would say that they probably weren't very well liked in the town. Maybe the whole family wasn't liked.
That's true.
I would say it's a possibility that they might, lord it around with their wealth and their power and everything. So,
Yes.
sorry. I would say it's definitely possible that it was a bit of a, skadefryd, Schadenfreude, I think it's more commonly used.
Schadenfreude.
Yeah.
Right?
I would say that is an
Yeah, we
element
don't
of
got
the
a
story.
word for that.
No.
We just steal the German.
Yeah, I think that is a bit stronger in the Germanic languages and traditions. We certainly have it up here in Scandinavia. So, yeah.
Nazi werewolf just followed.
Yeah, welcome.
Nice name.
Yeah.
Well, Taika's a bit worried about everything that's happening. Well, we just hope to be somewhere where you can really get away from it. Here, take a little bit of a break, listen to some stories.
Yeah.
And we hope to have a little segment of people's day where they're not worrying so much about things, and where we do focus on something positive like our culture.
Yeah, you don't have to be a political animal 24/7, taking an hour or two on the Sundays and just relaxing to some stories and discussions about them. We thought that would be a good idea. And keeping our old stories alive, keeping the traditions and culture. There's a lot of talk about our culture, but the amount of streams about our culture, we don't have many of those. So we thought we might fill a little niche there.
Yeah.
We have to keep them alive, and in order to do that, we have to know them. So also we have gotten our first stories up as separate videos on YouTube, where it's only the stories. There's no discussion around them, so you can go and have a listen there and create your own playlists with them, play for your kids if you feel they are appropriate and everything. So I hope that everyone will take a look at those. But it does seem like YouTube have something against selkies, because our selkie stories got age restricted after a few hours.
Nature. I mean, you can't really think what. The mermaid one was worse. He flipping grabs her and kisses her.
Yeah.
Wouldn't I think that'd be okay with contemporary YouTube? No, it was the silky one.
You would think that YouTube were tolerant on, humanoid-ish creatures. So I don't know, maybe they are just a bit
Yeah.
prejudiced or something. Who knows? But apparently they won't show for accounts that are under 18, so keep that in mind.
Or what? I mean, again, the mermaid picture, arguably worse
Yeah.
on that front. I mean, nothing is bad about either of the two stories either.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I thought it was a mistake at first when I went into the YouTube studio and went to fix it, and set by YouTube, and I just went, what?
yeah, I kind of wonder if we could question it. I mean, I think we got copyright claimed on some Masorgsky we used on the Halloween stream. Got to be careful with that. But like, why they would set that one particular one to over 18? Why they would put that restriction on that? Yeah, that's mysterious.
Yeah.
That's quite mysterious.
Yeah, perhaps it triggered some weird algorithm or something. Who knows? But in any case, we will try to get our story backlog up as soon as possible.
Yes.
So keep an eye out. Hopefully everything will be up there by the end of this year. It is quite busy days, so it might take a few weeks. As you know, we do have a backlog now, so yeah, but we will work as fast as we can.
Going to put some lemons in the chest.
Yeah.
There we go. 100 lemons in the chest. I think
that's great.
We should finish _flag gift. There is no gift there. But we should do the chest. Yes. Let's distribute the rewards. Who is going to get lemons?
Yeah.
We should have a lemon drum roll. We need a lemon drum roll.
Yeah, let's try to find a drum roll.
An entire 30 seconds worth of drum roll.
Might be a bit long or something.
Just slightly. Just long enough to be slightly awkward.
Yeah. So, always the exciting moment there.
Fearless Bear got the 34. Yep,
Ooh,
you won.
Congratulations.
Down, Dammy, you won some lemon. 19.9 lemons. Oh, thank you for the ice cream, Fearless Bear. 1690 Sparky. Got 14.7 lemons. I agree, you got 11.9 lemons. And Flynn Photo got 10.1 lemons. Oh, influx of lemons. Fearless Bear, Mighty Goose. Who else? Who else did the lemon? And there might have been someone else. I don't know if we missed you.
I agree, and Fearless Bear and Mighty Goose have just donated again, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Very much appreciated, and we aim to use the donations for media archives with pictures and music and everything. So it will be put to good use, and everything will go to the stream.
Over 4,000. That is where we intend to put the money. Oh, thank you for the ice cream, 1690 Sparky.
Yeah,
Hello,
thank
Basot.
you. Good to see you, Basot.
Yeah. That's about us for today. That is all our stories. We hope that you liked our facts about Christmas trees and tinsel. And we hope that you enjoyed all the stories. Yeah.
Yeah. This is the first of our Advent streams, so since our show is coinciding with the Advent Sundays, the last 4 shows of the year will be Christmas themed. So yeah, hope to see you all again next week. Same place, same time, 3 p.m. EST and 8 p.m. GMT. So yeah, hope everyone has have a lovely weekend and hope you have a wonderful week.
Oh, and welcome to Camden, who's just followed. Yes,
Yeah.
have a lovely weekend, everyone. Well, have a lovely evening. The weekend's done now. Have a lovely week.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Goodbye.